Hey everyone, what's happening? Let me tell you about something that absolutely dominated the conversation on SportsCenter today. And I'm talking about the kind of blockbuster NBA storyline that has everyone from casual fans to hardcore analysts buzzing with excitement and speculation about what it could mean for the championship race in the Eastern Conference. This is the type of potential move that doesn't just affect one team, it ripples through the entire league and forces every other contender to reassess their own rosters and strategies. So, settle in, because what I'm about to share from today's ESPN broadcast is going to have you thinking about playoff matchups, roster construction, and championship aspirations in ways you probably haven't considered before. All right, here's the situation that had the entire SportsCenter panel absolutely obsessed this morning. And I'm talking about veteran NBA analysts who've seen thousands of trades over their careers, but still couldn't contain their excitement about the implications of what they were reporting. The main story, the headline that's going to dominate basketball conversations for weeks, is that DeRozan could potentially be on the move to the New York Knicks. And when you really break down why this makes sense from every possible angle, it becomes clear that this isn't just idle speculation. This is a move that could genuinely happen and could completely transform the Knicks from playoff contender to legitimate championship threat in the Eastern Conference. Hey, what's up everyone? Before we jump into this massive Knicks news, I just want to ask you for a quick favor that would mean the world to me. If you could just take 1 second right now and hit that like button, it would be incredibly important to me and helps this channel grow so much. I know it seems like a small thing, but those likes genuinely make a huge difference in getting this content out to more Knicks fans who need to stay updated on everything happening with this team. So seriously, just tap that like button real quick. It literally takes 1 second and it helps me out more than you know. Let me start by giving you the full context that SportsCenter was establishing right at the beginning of the broadcast. Because understanding both DeRozan's situation and the Knicks' needs is absolutely essential for grasping why this potential move has so much substance behind it. DeMar DeRozan is currently with the Sacramento Kings, a team that, as we discussed earlier, is in full fire sale mode after a disastrous start to their season. The Kings are willing to trade virtually anyone on their roster as they pivot toward a complete rebuild. And DeRozan, despite being a productive veteran, is exactly the type of asset they'd look to move to a contender in exchange for draft picks and younger players who fit their timeline better. But here's what really got the SportsCenter analysts fired up about this whole situation. And this is where you start to see how perfectly all the pieces align. DeRozan has been public about his desire to compete for an NBA championship at this stage of his career. He's explicitly mentioned wanting to play for teams in the Eastern Conference that have real title chances, and he's reached that point where individual statistics and accolades matter less than winning rings. For a player of his caliber who's accomplished everything except winning a championship, the opportunity to join a legitimate contender in the biggest market in basketball could be exactly what he's looking for. Now let's talk about why the Knicks specifically make so much sense as a destination, because this is where the ESPN crew really dove deep into the roster construction and championship window analysis. The Knicks have built a really solid core with Jalen Brunson emerging as an all-star caliber point guard, with Karl Anthony Towns providing elite offensive versatility, with Mikal Bridges giving them perimeter defense. But there's still something missing. There's still that veteran presence who's been through the wars and knows what it takes to win in the playoffs. DeRozan brings exactly that kind of experience and championship mentality that could elevate this team to the next level. The show spent extensive time breaking down DeRozan's skill set and why it would fit so perfectly with what the Knicks are trying to do. Despite being in his mid-30s, DeRozan is still averaging 18.7 points per game this season, still showing that he can score consistently, still demonstrating the mid-range mastery and playmaking ability that's made him one of the most reliable offensive weapons in the NBA for over a decade. What the SportsCenter analysts kept emphasizing is that DeRozan isn't some washed veteran looking for one last paycheck. He's a player who can still genuinely contribute at a high level and make a meaningful impact on a contender's chances. What I found particularly fascinating during today's ESPN discussion was when they started talking about how DeRozan would fit into specific Knicks lineups and offensive schemes. Tom Thibodeau's system values versatility, basketball IQ, and the ability to create offense in different ways, and DeRozan checks all those boxes. You could run offense through him in the mid-post, you could use him as a secondary playmaker when Brunson needs a breather, you could deploy him in pick-and-roll situations with Towns, you could have him attack closeouts when defenses collapse on your other scorers. The versatility that DeRozan's skill set provides would give Thibs so many more offensive options than he currently has. The panel also explored what a potential trade package might look like, and this sparked really interesting debates about asset valuation and roster construction. The Knicks would presumably need to send out salary to match DeRozan's contract. They'd likely need to include draft picks to make the Kings interested, and there might need to be additional players involved depending on how aggressive both sides want to be. One framework that kept coming up would involve the Knicks sending multiple second-round picks and potentially a player like Miles McBride or another rotation piece to Sacramento in exchange for DeRozan. The question is whether that's enough to get Sacramento's attention or if they'd demand more. What the SportsCenter crew kept coming back to, and I think this is absolutely critical for understanding why this move makes sense right now, is that the Knicks are in legitimate win-now mode. They're not building for 3 years from now. They're not hoping young players develop into stars. They're trying to capitalize on this window, where they have a really good core and a path to competing for championships. Adding a veteran scorer and playmaker like DeRozan, who's proven he can perform in high-pressure playoff situations, would be exactly the type of move that teams in championship windows need to make. The show also spent significant time discussing DeRozan's connection to New York and why the market itself might be attractive to him. New York is one of the biggest stages in all of sports. Playing for the Knicks comes with intense media scrutiny and pressure, but also incredible visibility and legacy-building opportunities. For a player like DeRozan, who's accomplished so much individually but never won a championship, the chance to bring a title to New York and cement his legacy in one of basketball's most storied franchises could be incredibly appealing. The ESPN analysts were suggesting that the intangibles and personal motivations might be just as important as the basketball fit. One thing that came up repeatedly during the broadcast that I thought was absolutely fascinating was the discussion about how DeRozan would impact the Knicks' offensive hierarchy and shot distribution. Right now, Brunson is clearly the #1 option, Towns is the second option, and then there's a bit of a drop-off to everyone else. Adding DeRozan would give you a legitimate big three, where any of those players could take over a game on a given night depending on matchups and how defenses are playing them. That kind of offensive firepower and versatility is what championship teams need. That's what makes you dangerous in 7-game playoff series, when teams have time to scout and scheme against you. The SportsCenter panel also explored DeRozan's playoff experience and track record, because that's obviously crucial when evaluating whether a veteran addition actually helps in the postseason. DeRozan has been through countless playoff battles. He's played in high-pressure elimination games. He's faced adversity and criticism and learned how to respond. While he's never won a championship, that experience and the lessons learned from falling short are valuable. He knows what works in the playoff, he knows how to prepare, he knows how to handle the mental and physical grind of a 2-month playoff run. That knowledge and experience would be incredibly valuable to a Knicks team that's trying to break through and reach the finals. What really struck me during today's ESPN analysis was when they started discussing the potential chemistry and locker room dynamics. DeRozan is known throughout the league as a great teammate, someone who mentors younger players, someone who's professional and focused on winning. The Knicks have had some chemistry questions in the past. They've had personality clashes and egos colliding, but bringing in someone like DeRozan, who's universally respected and who's been through everything in this league, could actually help stabilize and mature the locker room culture. That intangible leadership impact shouldn't be underestimated when evaluating potential acquisitions. The show also touched on the contract and financial aspects of this potential move, because that obviously matters for both teams' planning. DeRozan's contract is more manageable than you might expect for a player of his caliber, which makes him easier to trade for, compared to some other veterans on max deal. The Knicks have some financial flexibility and movable contracts that could make the salary matching work without completely gutting their depth. The Sports Center analysts were breaking down different scenarios, showing how the Knicks could add DeRozan without sacrificing so much that they'd be worse overall, which is the tricky balance you have to strike with any mid-season trade. One aspect that got extensive discussion on ESPN was how adding DeRozan would impact the Knicks' defensive identity and scheme. Thibodeau is obviously a defense-first coach, and there are legitimate questions about whether DeRozan, at this stage of his career, can hold up defensively in the playoffs against elite wings and forwards. The counter-argument that the panel made is that the Knicks already have strong defenders like Bridges, and potentially others, so DeRozan wouldn't need to be your primary stopper. He'd just need to hold his own and not be a liability. Plus, his offensive contributions would more than offset any defensive limitations if you're strategically deploying him in the right matchups. What I loved about today's Sports Center coverage was how they connected this potential DeRozan acquisition to the broader Eastern Conference landscape and playoff picture. The Knicks are currently a good team, but probably not quite in that top tier with Boston and whoever emerges from the rest of the conference. Adding DeRozan could be exactly what pushes them into that elite category, could give them the offensive firepower to go toe-to-toe with anyone in a 7-game series. The analysts were wargaming potential playoff matchups, showing how DeRozan's scoring and playmaking could be the difference maker against teams that have been giving the Knicks problem. The panel also discussed the timeline and urgency aspects of this potential move. We're getting closer to the trade deadline, which means if the Knicks want to make this happen, they need to act relatively soon. The longer they wait, the more likely another team swoops in with a better offer, or DeRozan gets moved elsewhere. There's also the integration time factor. You want to acquire players with enough regular season games remaining that they can learn the system and build chemistry with teammates before the playoffs start. Waiting too long creates complications, even if you ultimately get the deal done. One thing the Sports Center analysts kept emphasizing that I think is absolutely vital is the importance of being aggressive when you have a championship window open. The Knicks have built something special over the last few years. They have a core that can compete. They have organizational stability. They have a coach who knows how to win. When you're in that position, you can't be passive and hope things work out. You have to actively look for ways to improve, to add pieces that elevate your ceiling. DeRozan represents exactly that type of addition. A proven veteran who makes you better immediately without requiring some long development curve. Listen, after watching the entire Sports Center segment today about DeMar DeRozan potentially joining the Knicks, I'm absolutely convinced this is the type of move that could genuinely change their championship trajectory. DeRozan brings scoring, playmaking, experience, and leadership that this team desperately needs. His mid-range game would give them a different dimension offensively. His veteran presence would help in tight playoff games, and his desire to win a championship aligns perfectly with where the Knicks are as an organization. Yes, there are questions about age and defense and what you'd have to give up, but when you're this close to competing for title, you have to be willing to take calculated risks. This could be the move that finally gets the Knicks over the hump and back to championship contention.